Hello. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Garima, and this is Jade. We're both on the Signature Days of Service Committee. We're a committee of 11 students, and we work together to host events on campus, service events on campus. And so today we're going to talk to you guys about how we go through planning a service event. Okay. So like I said, we are a student committee. We're under the Office of Pitt Serves. Does anyone know where the Office of Pitt Serves is? No. So it's on the 9th floor of this building, the William Pitt Union. It hosts a lot of different student organizations, Jumpstart, America Reads. They have to do with education, SDOS, SCEC. There's a lot of different organizations you can get involved in, which we'll talk about later on as well. But for us specifically, we were established in 2019. The 3 main days of service that we host are Civic Action Week, which is happening right now, Race Intersecting with Service and Engagement, previously known as MLK Day of Service, and Be a Good Neighbor Day. So in the past, Civic Action Week used to be known as PMAD, or Pitt Make a Difference Day. Due to COVID and other factors, we ended up changing it into a week-long event with various types of service opportunities, which again, I'll get into a little bit later on. So in terms of planning a service event, we kind of broke it down into these 4 steps. So first step is choosing a focus area and a theme. Second step is choosing projects that'll fall into those different focus areas, recruiting and marketing to encourage participants to sign up, and then creating a brand to gain reputation in the long run. So that's step 1, choosing a theme or focus area. They can include anything you would like, sustainability, activism, human rights, anything like that. And then themes are usually more broad. So again, in the context of Civic Action Week, our overall theme is dialogue, deliberation, and disruption. But we do have focus areas that each of the different projects fall into specifically. So again, if you're maybe part of an organization, or if you want to get involved with an organization, they sometimes have mission statements or visions that have their own themes already. So that's a good place to start if you're interested in planning an event surrounding that. So step 2, choosing projects. Before we actually choose projects, what we do is we find community partners. This is a huge step in any service event. You want to have some kind of community partner. And so step 1 with that is researching your theme or your focus area to see which organizations or partners already exist. The biggest thing about that is researching what resources and assets they have and how what you have can supplement that. The last thing that you want to do is walk in and try to take over their organization or whatever they're already doing. You're really just trying to supplement their resources. And so that's what kind of the second bullet point is there, that you want to be respectful and avoid having a savior complex. And then forming a bond with community partners long-term. That's really important whenever you're having a long-term event. So they should be meaningful long-term and benefit both parties. So it's definitely a two-way street. It's not you're just here to help the partner or the partner's just here to help you. It really is a two-way street. The last part, really important, being transparent in what you can and can't do. You don't want the partners to rely on you for something and then you kind of just fall through, right? So making sure that you're communicating what resources you have and what you're able to contribute is really important. And then in terms of the projects themselves, they can be in person, hands-on, speaker sessions, DIY projects, collecting donation drives. Those are the 4 examples that we have for Civic Action Week. So if you guys have been participating in some of the other events this week, you probably know that this is one of the examples of the speaker sessions, obviously. But we do have DIY projects and donation drives as well as the in-person direct service. But again, the key for these projects is planning around the partners. So Civic Action Week has close to like 40 partners who have been in contact with us about all the different events we're hosting this week. So again, that's how that kind of all plays together. Hand it off to Jeremy.
So one of the main problems that we always have when trying to organize these events is we need a lot of volunteers, right? And that's going to be anybody's problem when they're trying to get involved, especially like a new startup. You need to have a reputation so people know that there's going to be consistent volunteering. It's going to be easy for them to come and volunteer. So one of the main ways we outreach to get volunteers is social media. Everybody uses their phone. Everybody's always on their phone. Facebook, Instagram are really helpful, especially Instagram nowadays for just recruiting new volunteers, right? And to Grima's point earlier, advertising on there can also help you find community partners to work with. So the most important thing is when you're building your brand, you want to have consistency. You want to make sure there's a reputation of, we do good work here, right? So you want to make sure that that's reflected also in how you're posting on social media. You want to make sure you're scheduling when you post. You want to have regular posts. Community partners should never go to look into your organization and see like, okay, these people haven't posted on their Facebook since like 2011, right? You want to make sure there's consistency, that they know that this is someone we can work with, that's present, that's, covering all corners, making sure that they're continuing to update their stuff, right? Especially around campus, if you're going to advertise to students, sometimes they're too busy, they don't see the stuff that's going on, that gets sent to their emails. Tabling is really important. Scheduling, either your committee members or your volunteers or whoever that's on your group that's going to help you plan this, scheduling them to go out and table. There's plenty of options around campus to like rent tables out and use them and utilize that time to be able to outreach directly to the community of people you're trying to get to volunteer for your event, right? You also want to make sure the sign-up process is super easy. You never want to have people try to volunteer at your event and there's like a 10-step process to be able to choose their project, right? You want to make sure it's simple. They sign up, they name, email, and that they can just continue that process and make it as easy as possible for them to come day of and volunteer. So to the earlier point about making sure that you have consistency to create your brand and to have a good reputation, not only for your community partners who you want to continue to work with you year after year, but also for your volunteers. The key to, especially what we do in Pittsburgh, we want to be sustainable. We want to have long-term relationships, not only with the community partners, but with our volunteers, like I said. And that comes in, maybe after your first event, things don't go perfect, but to be able to meet with the planning committee and say, okay, what worked, what didn't. It's really good and honest, and it shows the people you're working with that, some humility whenever you admit mistakes or you're willing to change the process to make it easier for everybody. When we're talking about building your brand, that goes to social media, but also, especially for volunteers, giveaways are a big thing, whether it be like t-shirts, we've given out hand sanitizer, tote bags, we get a lot of stuff made, and you want to make sure it's a consistent brand, something that people, are going to recognize when they see it. They're going to go, okay, that's for that event. And eventually there will be a familiarity that gets created around that brand or around the logo or whatever you guys are using to advertise, even in like, banners or posters or flyers that you would post on social media. People are going to know the logo, know the faces, and feel more comfortable to be able to participate because they already know what this is about, or that there's just a good reputation around what you guys are doing. I'm going to turn it over to Jade.
Okay, you guys can hear me? Okay. So this is just a list of organizations. You guys are part of the lacrosse team and, right over there is part of SDOS. So, there are like service organizations on campus that you can reach out to if you are feeling overwhelmed by like, you guys have to plan a community service event for your organization, right? And you don't really know where to reach out to. You have the signature days. You have all Pittsburghs, really, all Pittsburghs. You have Jumpstart, you have us, the Signature Days of Service Committee. You have SCEC, the Student Civic Engagement Committee. They do a lot of DIY boxes and all kinds of service projects. They're in charge of helping students reach out to community partners and get them, point them to the right direction for that. So if you ever need any help, please contact PitServes. But if you guys are interested in joining an organization that, if you're interested in joining an organization that is responsible for planning events like this, we have PDM that you can join. Also, you can just do that with your group, but that's a really big one, Pitt Dance Marathon, that happens in the spring. You have us, the SDOS, our applications open in the spring. SCEC also in the spring. Student Office of Sustainability, if you are interested in like a specific type of service, either it be like sustainability, direct service, philanthropy. There are all different kinds of organizations that'll help you get to that point, get to that service. And then SGB, oh, this is really great. So SGB is great because if you're an organization and you're looking to plan a community service event, you can ask them for grants. Like you can propose service grants for them. So if you need, like if you're trying to do something like Signature Days of Service and you need money for t-shirts or something like that, you can ask SGB and see if they will help you with that. Yeah, so they're a great resource. And then there's, Service Greek Life, who, if you guys are interested in that, there's like Gamma Sigma Sigma and other fraternities that will help you, that will require service as a part of your membership, but they will always be planning service events. So, and of course, please check out our volunteer service portal. That is on our PidServ's website. That will give you so many options for projects and resources. You can search based on what kind of service you want to do, based on the organization you want to serve with, and it's a great resource for that. And of course, there's a source list if you guys want to look at all the organizations and search by service.
So yeah, I just want to add a couple things. So to what Jeremy was saying about creating a brand, that obviously takes a lot of time. So don't ever feel discouraged or overwhelmed that, I have to do all these things, start little by little. SDOS, we started in 2019, which was only 3 years ago. And, I'll be honest, it was rough that year. We hit a couple of bumps in the road, but we learned from those mistakes and we were able to come back from it and plan, better and bigger events. So, take that time. Don't feel like you have to do everything at once. You definitely have time to build a brand. And then the second thing I wanted to say was for SGB, SDOS, we definitely take advantage of these grants. If you think about running an event from our perspective, we pay for t-shirts, we provide food for volunteers on that Saturday day of service, we provide transportation, so we pay for buses. All those things kind of add up. So grants is definitely one thing that you should always take advantage of because it never hurts to just fill out an application. But yeah, I just wanted to add that really quick.
I forgot to add this too, but we also offer grants. SDOS, Jeremy and I are actually on the grant committee. I'm surprised I forgot that, but yes, we offer grants for both community partners and for student organizations. So please go on the PidServ's website, go on our page, and search up what kind of grant, because we do fund student projects. We funded like 3 last year, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, so there's that. Also, we're in the middle of a rebranding right now, actually. It used to be Pitt Make a Difference Day, if you guys remember Pitt Make a Difference Day. And now it's Civic Action Week. So yeah, we had a little bit of experience with rebranding. So this is the discussion portion. You guys are all part of organizations, I'm sure. And if you're not, like maybe you guys have participated in service events before. But if you guys have any questions, start with those, unless you guys want to jump right into the discussion portion. Go ahead. I mean, Civic Action Week actually has a couple DIY projects. They're run by the Student Civic Engagement Council, who is represented right now by Raina. If you want to talk a little bit more about those.
Hello. On the PidServ's website, there should be, I think starting on Monday, I think there's like a grand opening, or like, are they like redoing it so that you could actually sign up for DIY boxes, and every person in PidServ in SCEC has a DIY box. So each, so there should be 7 of them. And for example, like mine is t-shirt pillow making, like make pillows out of t-shirts, and it goes to Bridge Beyond, a club here on campus that helps the homeless in Oakland. And like Helen on SCEC is doing activity books for Brookline Teen Outreach for children. Nora's doing head wraps for Hillman for cancer patients at Hillman Cancer Center. And they're like a really great way to just sign out and you like get an hour. You could do it with your whole organization. If you're an RA, it's like good for your floor. and then you just like do the activity, put it back in the box and give it to Pit Serves. And you could, yeah. Yeah, we do. We do. All the materials should be in that box along with instructions. Yeah, so that should be opening up next week. I'll keep an eye.
Yeah, sure, sorry. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, then we'll just head straight into discussion portion. So this is kind of not the format to facilitate discussion, but maybe you guys, if you guys don't mind, we can, if you guys have an answer, I can hand you the microphone and we can talk about it that way. Okay, so why do organizations require service? What is the importance of volunteering? Anybody want to take a stab?
So obviously we all go to Pitt here, and I think we get a lot of benefits from both the university and the community and the city as a whole. So I think it's really important to give back when we are getting so much from it and to help out others that don't have the same opportunities that we have.
Anybody else want to answer?
Yeah, I think what you said is really important. I know being on campus, we kind of live in this bubble where it's like Oakland and then nothing outside of that. So I think serving outside of the community really allows us to see what's happening outside of Oakland, really engage with the neighborhoods around us. And, you know, really, I guess, like, I don't know the right word, but yeah, just being aware of Pittsburgh as a whole and not just on campus is really important.
I think when I first joined Pit Serves, I mean, that was my first, my college experience was my first time ever being in service. I had never been in service before. And I joined Pit Serves, and I don't know, I think it was explained to me, you know, like the reason why we do Pitt Make a Difference Day, if you guys remember that, which is now Civic Action Week. Like it was like a way to show our gratitude to the Pitt community for letting us be here. It was kind of like, we kind of like have this entitlement in being here, I think, in Oakland. Like we're students, we pay to be here. And like, yeah, we don't owe the university, but we owe the community for letting us be here or something like that. So that was an interesting way to, you know, think about it for me, because, you know, I don't really think about gratitude in the community until I didn't really think about it until after I had joined Pit Serves. So our next question. What personally motivates you for service in the Pittsburgh community?
I think it's very similar along the lines that we've been talking about. Pittsburgh has given me so many different things. They've given me my friends, they've given me an education, they've given me opportunities that I could have never dreamed of if I hadn't come here. And the fact that they've given so much to me motivates me to give back to them. And the best way to do that is going through the community. So that's kind of how I see it. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it gives me so much. So there's a reason to always give back.
I think for me personally, it's kind of what you said on that. You kind of feel good about yourself after. A lot of like my values, like helping homeless people or like helping sheltered animals, like just make me feel good about myself, and me helping them obviously makes them feel good too. So that's kind of it for me.
I agree with a lot of, whoa, too close. I agree with a lot of the points you guys are making. But I think there's also like not just on the point of like you guys are actually going out to make a difference in other people's lives, but it's also helping you guys too, right? Not just in the fact that you guys are gaining experience and like actually doing service, but you know, there's a lot of stuff in the city, like when we Grima talked about being in like the bubble around Oakland's campus. And a lot of other universities around us experience the same thing, where they're just like, they want to stay on their campus, like especially for people just coming to the city, right? But I think, you know, like these volunteer opportunities, especially going all across the city, gives you an opportunity to see like all the different communities are out there, all the different cultures that are around the city, all the different businesses and restaurants that aren't in Oakland that are around the city. It gives people like, you know, let's say you went out to Squirrel Hill to serve, and you found like this, you know, on Walnut Street, there's this really good restaurant there. It's going to make you want to go back. It's going to make you tell other people about it, and it's going to have the Pitt community reaching out further into Pittsburgh. So I think those are also like benefits that may not be directly related from going out and doing the service, but kind of come into it because of having our community go out and reach further in the city than just our small bubble here.
Thank you. Wait, this is already on. So I just want to say about like reasons for, for service in the Pittsburgh community. If you have to do it for, and if any of you guys are participating tomorrow in like on Saturday, October 9th for your in-person projects, we talk about this in our volunteer training, how it is okay to serve the community for service requirements, but just making sure you're transparent about that fact, like to your community partners. You're not trying to include what your actual reasons for services. So it's definitely okay to do it for service requirements. There's no shame in that. Just be transparent about why you're there. Like what Karima said about, knowing what you can and can't do. Okay, so what do you learn from service?
I think experience in service, you can really learn a lot of perspective. I think with my time in Pitt Serves, I really learned about neighborhoods, the culture of each neighborhood in Pittsburgh, and like learning that, every place has a history, has a background, and all of that matters. And the way that, you talk about neighborhoods, it's not something I ever really thought about until like being a part of the service here in the university. So it really allowed for a like general broader perspective on what it means to volunteer and be active in the community, and what's important for a community, like sustainability, as you guys are talking about, and what the needs of the neighborhoods are.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to add that's really important. One of the biggest things that I also learned is just identifying the privileges that I have just from kind of visiting different neighborhoods and seeing like the disparities in the different neighborhoods, especially like the gentrification that's been happening throughout history and stuff like that. Being in Oakland, we have so much privilege just by being at Pitt, being at a four-year college, at a higher institution for education, being able-bodied, having a home, having food, stuff like that. You don't think about that kind of stuff every day because that's just your normal life. But, going into different communities and seeing that, it really puts you into perspective, like Raina was saying. I also just wanted to add that service is a really broad term. Civic engagement can be literally anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be direct service, which is what people traditionally think of when we say service. Even attending this session is a form of civic engagement because you're learning more about, communities and how to get involved and stuff like that. So even like DIY sessions, drives, any of these events are forms of civic engagement. So you can really learn a lot from those forms of service as well.
Those are a lot of really good points Greenman just made. I also want to add on to what Raina said, because I think there was a lot of good stuff there too. Especially the point about, all the different cultures around the city and all the different neighborhoods having their own needs. I think it's really important that we recognize, and that's why specifically we work with community partners rather than just planning what we're going to do in their communities. But I think it's very, very important that we recognize that each neighborhood is different. Every area around the city has its own needs, and we need to be respectful of those needs and help them in the way that they need to be helped. There's no blanket service that's just going to help the whole city, right? Every area is going to have its own specific needs that we can go and assist them with. So I think it's really important that we work with people that live in those communities because they know what that community experiences day to day. So I think that was a really good point Raina made.
Any other additions to these answers? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to our semi-last question. How has your organization planned a service event in the past? And if you are serving as part of an organization, have you participated in a service event, and how did the organizers plan it? Like, for example, how many how are community partners involved? What could you or they have done differently? Okay.
Well, I was gonna say all four of us and her back there are on the lacrosse team. And last year it was really hard for us to do any service events, but we got involved with doing Pit Kids on Zoom, which was really fun to do. And you did like little after school activities with them and they would get off the bus, which was fun. But it's really hard for our whole team to get in the same place at one time just because of our schedule. So I think like the DIY boxes, hearing about that is definitely something that I think our team would be interested in. Okay, so at my last school, I was a part of an organization called Women in Flight, and there was we put on an event for the National Women and Girls in Sports Day, and we reached out to the community. We had about like a 400 or 500 person turnout. We ran a whole event with all the women's teams, and they taught the girls how to play sports, and they just rotated it. It was a really well put together event, very thoughtfully planned. I think if anything differently, it would have been just allowing more people to come. I think a lot of people wanted to come, and it just the turnout was the space wasn't big enough for that.
Hello. Yeah. Last year, like on the lacrosse team, we I forget which community it was. Like it was like yeah, the Hill District. With COVID, it was just hard. We wanted to give back to like a restaurant in the area, and so we decided to go and get breakfast from, I forget the restaurant, but it was in the Hill District. And it was just planned. We all drove up there with COVID, and we got breakfast, gave them, we didn't get to see that like any of the cooks or anything really, besides when we picked up the food, which could have been done a little bit differently. But with COVID, like I said, it was just hard to get like hands-on experience with people and like actually interact with them. So once we picked up our food, we just kind of said hi, thank you, basically, and then left. But just getting in that community was a nice change than just Oakland.
Can I ask a question? How did you guys decide where you were going to go? Like what made you, as a group, did you decide like this is where we want to go and do this at?
I
or-
think it was it Black History Month though? So it was like Black History Month. So we wanted to get back to a restaurant that had Black workers and stuff and like that kind of company. So our coaches and our director of ops did a little like, researching around the Oakland and Pittsburgh area, and we decided to go up there.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's good to see that there's, you know, we wanted to plan this, like to kind of talk about how to plan a service event, but, you know, it doesn't always have to be these, you know, grand scale, thousands of volunteers type things. You know, little things that we do in these communities can matter, right? So just like having your lacrosse team go do something like that in a community that you guys, you know, did research, decided to go to, it's really nice to hear.
Yeah. And the food was great. I mean, I've been back a couple times, so yeah.
Yeah, so I like, like she was saying, I think it's important to think of like how every action of your community service event affects the community. So like when it comes to like whether or not you're buying food for them, where you're making your t-shirts, where you're making your we call it swag because we're old, but where you're like your goodies or whatever that you're going to be handing out if you guys choose to do that, where you're making those things and how that affects your community. If there's somewhere in Pittsburgh, you could outsource those too. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions or anybody want to talk about anything specifically?
I guess I have a quick question for you guys. So with COVID, how did you guys like deal with that, and like what like problem solving mechanisms? Kind of a hard question, but you guys are here, so doing Civic Action Week, and you did it last year too. So what is like some advice you could give on like planning volunteer events in weird times?
Really going to hit us with the hard ones, huh?
I think Garima would be a very good.
Yeah, it's the reason we're chuckling is because it was obviously really hard to get through that year for everyone for obvious reasons. But I think the main thing is there's always going to be obstacles. It's just your motivation and passion that'll kind of get you past them. So with last year, we still had our community partners. And obviously we couldn't do direct service in the same way, but because we still had those bonds with our partners, we were able to still do DIY projects and drives and, speaker sessions through Zoom, obviously. So I guess it wasn't ideal, obviously, but we did with what we had. Is that the right phrase? I don't know. We did our best with what we had. But yeah, I think it just goes back to that main point of like just kind of pushing through each of those obstacles as they come up. Even with this year, we didn't know what it was going to look like, so it was hard to plan for an event this large scale. But we did the best we could. We went those steps that we told you. That's exactly what we did for this year. We anticipated having a hybrid event, which is why we have the Zoom and in person. So if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, I think one of our favorite words, we go in the office and always laugh, right? Was flexibility. And I think it's really important, not just for the planners, not just for the community partners, but also for the volunteers. Like, if you're going to have a successful service event, in times where nothing seems stable, there just needs to be flexibility. That's what we'd always tell each other on all parts. Everybody, and that's why, like Rima said, it's really important to build that brand. It's the steps that we talked about, because we had those community partners. We had people that it wasn't like we had to make new connections. We had the people that we had worked with in the past, and it wasn't like Pitt Serves and SDOS just started up and all of a sudden have these community partners, right? Like Rima said, it's definitely not something you're going to do overnight. It's not a one-year process. It's a journey that you guys are going to building an organization that's going to do this yearly. It was a long time before we had a consistent, like 40 or so community partners that we could continue to work with. And relying on them is what really got us through that year.
Yeah, one other thing I forgot to add is that we also partnered with, they were known as CGR last year, and now they're ECA. But they're basically what we do, but with staff and faculty at Pitt. So we partnered with them to host Civic Action Week last year and this year. So that was also a really big thing, which can also be applied to you guys as well. There are a lot of service organizations on campus, and some of them are going to have similar views or mission statements, whatever it may be. So if you are kind of like a smaller organization and you're trying to build up that brand, that reputation, reach out to other organizations that might be similar to you and see if you can partner with them or get some ideas or resources off of them, that kind of thing. So that was a really important step that I totally forgot, but we definitely could not have done it without them.
It's also one thing that was really important that we were able to do too, and it made me think of it when Greenman talked about reaching out is, Jay talked about before, like the resources, large organizations on campus that do service, but definitely reaching out to SGB. They're going to have a list of like service organizations at Pitt that you guys are going to be able to, as an organization, be able to access and be able to reach out to those things. Part of our recruitment process is sending thousands of emails, just trying to recruit, work with other organizations on campus, having, their whole, let's say a lacrosse team, the whole lacrosse team sign up for Civic Action Week, right? Like reaching out to people that have the same mission as you, to kind of band together and make your project even greater. It's such a great resource that we have being on such a large campus with, a large amount of clubs. So.
Also just adjusting your expectations in COVID, when we did PMAT in 2019, like we had 2,000 something volunteers, and the turnout was not like that for, Civic Action Week the following year because of COVID. And we also did some other things that were happening, but it's just adjusting your expectations to fit the times. And yeah, flexibility is just the word, like it's just the key word. It's so annoying to hear now, but it is. I know when we went back to SDOS last year, I was not as engaged because it's so hard to be engaged over Zoom. There's no way. And then we come back in person and it's a lot better. But it was really difficult during COVID to, not even just recruiting people, like even getting your own committee to do stuff for you because everyone's so wiped out. But yeah, like Rima said, you just have to power through it, and then you'll get somewhere.
Sorry, one last thing to add. You just reminded me of this, but also celebrate your successes. That's a huge thing. Going from PMAT to Civic Action Week, one, it was COVID, and two, we were rebranding our entire event. So, we didn't have the same number of volunteers we had in the past, but the quality of the service was much better in that it was more well-rounded. Students could engage in different types of activities. So, that's still a success in itself. Even if it wasn't high numbers, we had quality over quantity. So yeah, just whenever you have obstacles like that, power through it and celebrate those successes.
Anyone else have anything to add? All right, well then, we'll wrap it up then.
Yeah, so thank you all for coming through. Tomorrow is the last day of Civic Action Week, and we will be doing in-person service events. If you haven't registered yet, you can come at 8:45, and we can put you on a wait list for one of the projects. We're going out to different community partners in Pittsburgh. So again, you'll be visiting some of the neighborhoods, learning more about them. We do provide donuts in the morning. We give you a free t-shirt. When you come back, we'll give you free pizza as well. We're providing transportation, all of that. So definitely come through if you haven't registered already. Also, like I mentioned before, we had events happening this whole week. So if you go to our website, pi.tt/Civic Action Week, all of the speaker events that we had are on there. If you find anything interesting, all of those sessions were recorded and live streamed through the Pitt Student Affairs YouTube page. So you can go back and watch those events if you're interested in that. And then DIY projects and drives are still open until next week. We're going to be collecting those on October 15th to send to the community partners. So there's definitely still ways to get involved if you're interested. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for coming through. We really appreciate you. And yeah, we'll stay back for questions if you have any.